Okay, so just revise, who all feel like expertise on functions now? Very nice. Very good. Okay, so just to revise the thing, guys. Okay, I know that functions are very important. Okay, just to revise the thing. So what do you mean by functions? Finish it out. I'll wait. Okay, so what do you mean by functions? Why the reason we go for functions? What we actually do is, whenever we have some set of instructions to be repeated multiple times, we can go with functions. But you may ask me a question, in order to avoid the redundancy or repetitiveness, I can even go with loopings also. Then why do you go with functions? Whenever we want to repeat the set of instructions, not immediately, at multiple places, if I have to repeat the set of instructions, we can go with the functions, right? Yes. Yes. On the top, it is mandatory that if there is no repetition of the code, do you think functions cannot be implemented? If there is no repetition of the code, do you think functions are not needed? It is needed. Okay, doesn't matter whether it is a repetition or not, functions can be implemented. So what the functions can do here, using your functions, we will be achieving the modularity of the code. What do you mean by modularity? We are not going to combine all the logic into a single piece of code. Instead, we will be dividing the code into chunks of blocks here. Okay, one piece of block doing this, one piece of block doing this. Okay, so earlier, in order to work with some employee details or student details, we are writing the piece of code from 1 to 100 or number of lines of code. But now what we are doing, we are saying that this is the piece of method working for reading the student data. This is the piece of method working for performing some operations like calculating the total and average, performing some displaying the data. So like this, we are dividing the set of instructions into individual blocks for individual job. Okay, so that is why functions are mainly used to implement the modularity of the code. Okay, everybody knows what I mean by modularity? Everyone? Nice. Now, on the top, how you're going to define the functions? What is the keyword we are going to use? So we say function is the keyword, name of the function. Okay, open the close braces, open close flower braces. This is what we have. This is called as a function definition or function calling? Everyone, definition. What do you mean by function definition? Giving the body to the function, we call it as a function definition. And what do you mean by calling? When you want to make the function to get executed, that is where we call it as a function calling. So example, I say a function, something called a sample. Okay, open and close the braces and open close flower brace like this. Can I have the space while defining the function name? When I'm giving the function name, I say SA space PELE. Possible? Whenever you're declaring any of the variable, never possible to give the spaces. If you want to make a separator, put an underscore. Hyphen also doesn't work. Okay, you can say underscore, or it is better or recommended to go with the camel case. Okay, everybody know what I mean by camel case. Starts with your uppercase, starts with your lowercase, subwords follows with the uppercase. Okay, now this is how you're going to define the function. Whenever you want to invoke it, you simply say like this. When you're defining the function keyword is needed. When you're invoking the function, you don't need to put the function keyword, just the name of the function will be enough for you. Are we clear? Okay, next, once you define a function, how many number of times you can call the function? Once you define a function, it can be invoked for any number of times. Clear, everyone? Anywhere you want, you can invoke the function. Super fine. What are the different ways, or how many ways I can define a function? 3 different ways. First one is, say something called as function do job. This is one of the function what I'm going to define. This is one way using your function keyword. Next thing is using a variable. We can create a normal function and assign it to one of the variable. I say var do job is equal to something called as function, something like this, isn't it? This is the second way of defining the function. And the third way is arrow functions. Okay, what I say, where do job is equal to open and close braces, I say like this. Can you tell me the difference between the first way and the second way? Can you tell me the difference between the first way and second way instead of just variable declaration? First way, variable hoisting is not going to come into the picture. First way, the problem is we can invoke the function even before. Can I call the do job at line number 16 also? Yes, it is possible. I mean, without even, before the definition itself, we can invoke it. Why the reason? Whenever you give the piece of code for the JavaScript compiler, it will automatically identify the function definitions and it is going to execute them. Then it is going to invoke the function. That is the reason either you invoke the function before or after, it is possible. But the problem what we have is it's a confusion for the developer. How could I able to invoke the function before even definition? That is the reason it is recommended to go with the declaration type or variable declaration. I say a variable, either you can define a function, you can define ABC, you can define number, anything you can keep it. Now, if I keep it as a function, this will become a function. Okay. Now, the advantage is, can I invoke the do job method at line number 20? No. At line number 20, it is undefined. That is the reason you cannot invoke that function. It has to be only after the function definition. Next, coming to line number 25. What is the difference between 21 and 25? 21 and 25 is ECMA 6, the latest version of your JavaScript. It is recommended that don't use the function keyword. From your latest JavaScript, we never make use of the keyword called as function keyword. We can always go with the arrow functions directly. Okay. So, but I haven't, as I discussed yesterday, we haven't discussed anything major difference between these two jobs, isn't it? What is the major difference? What is the main advantage you will be getting the arrow symbol without just using the function keyword? As I said, in order to do that, you need to know what I mean by a class. You need to know what I mean by this operator, etc. Those things we need to know. Once we get to know, then you'll be having a good idea of this. Okay, I'm going to discuss those when we come to the ECMA 6 concepts. For now, you just need to know that there are 3 different ways of defining a function. Now, I may go with any of the way. Is the calling is going to be changed? No, calling is going to be same. Doesn't matter whatever the way you're going to define. For all of this, I simply say do job only. Doesn't matter how the way you're going to declare it. Invoking will be the same syntax. Okay. So everybody's expertise up to this. Everyone. Okay. Now, next topic what we have is okay, 2 things what we need to discuss. Overloading, I'm still pending. And another thing is scope of the variables. Do I have notes for this scope of the variable? Global variable, local variables, part of notes? Okay, say for example, if someone asks you saying that, boss, I say where a is equal to say some 90, I say a function show data Any questions in this example? I'm just declaring a simple variable a. I'm defining a method called a show data, and I'm invoking the method show data here. Now, when I save this guy, I come back and put in the default browser, inspect this, go for console. It says that value of A is 19. Clear, everyone? Just a simple variable declaration. Now, people will be asking you, what do you mean by the scope of a variable A? Okay, scope of a variable A. What do you mean by scope of a variable A? The scope of any of the variable will tell you where all the variable can be accessible. Okay, the scope of a variable is where all the variable will be accessible. That is what we call it as a scope of a variable. Let us take a practical example, guys. Say, for example, there is a projector and there is a content which is coming here. Now, if I ask you, boss, what is the scope of this content? Whatever the content you see it on the screen, what is the scope? The scope, can I say that the accessibility level, where all it can be accessible, the content can be only accessible, or the people who are standing or sitting within this particular room, only they can see that. The people who is going there, can they see this content? No. Now, what is the scope of this guy? The scope of this guy is inside the class or within the class. Now, I say that there is a water bottle being added over there, water bottle being set up over there outside of the class. What is the scope of that guy? Is it only to this class? No. Is it not for all the Naresh IT students there? Yes, it is. So, scope of that particular guy will tell you where all I could able to get accessibility. That is what we call it as scope of a variable. So, in general, in a programming, we have 3 scopes. Okay. So, we have something called as 3 scopes here. Not scoops, scopes. Okay, so we have something called as 3 scope of the variable. What are those? The very first thing is global scope, okay, which is local scope, and something called as block scope. Anytime you say a variable where all it can be accessible, either it can be accessible globally, either it can be accessible locally, or it can be accessible within the block. Block scope will only come into the picture when we go to the ECMA 6, but today itself I'll discuss, that's a piece of part. First of all, let us understand the difference between the global scope and local scope. So what do you mean by global scope? Anytime you are declaring any of the variable outside of any of the function, anytime you are declaring any of the variables outside of any of the function, that we call it as a global scope. What do you mean by global scope? That can be accessible anywhere within the application. Now I say console.log a value of a. Okay, let us say I'm going to define another function, say something called as sample job. Okay, in the same, now I can access this guy over here. At the same time, I can access this guy over here also. Like this. Okay, now I'm declaring the variable A, where it is at line number 15. Am I defining it inside any of the block here, any of the module? No. Then the scope of this variable A will be global scope. Anything which is declared outside of the function, we call it as a global scope. And what do you mean by global scope? That can be accessible anywhere within the application. I can access it within the show data. I can access it within the sample job. I can access it even outside of the functions also. Now, when I save this guy, come back here and reload this guy. And reload this guy, inspect this, go for console. You see that I could able to access the value of A at all the 3 locations. Within the functions, outside the functions, I can also make use of it. That is what we call it as a global scope. Any questions? Okay, people even call it as global variables or global scope. Both are going to be the same. Now, what do I mean by local scope here? Say, for example, I say where B equal to say some 100. Now I say that console.log value of B is plus B here. Okay. In the same way, I try to access the value of B even outside of the function also. Let us save this guy, reload the page. You see, immediately I'm going to get an error. B is not defined. Now, if you come into the application, you will say that, boss, B has been declared over here, right? At B equal to 100 is been declared. Why the reason or else? Let me show you. Say for example, I'm doing this. B equal to 100 I'm doing. When I reload the page, A is coming, B is also coming at line number 19. Super fine. But now when I try to access the value of B outside of this guy, okay, when I try to access the value of B outside of the function, then it is going to throw me an error at line number 26. What it is saying, B is not defined. He's saying that, boss, I don't know who is B. But if you ask me a question, boss, B is declared. Boss, B equal to 100 is been declared. But where it is been declared? It is being declared within the function. Whenever you declare any of the variables within the function, those are going to come into the those are going to come into the block scope here, or those are coming into the local scope over here. What do you mean by local scope? Accessibility of the B will be only within this function. Within this function, any number of times you can make use of it. But if you try to access these guys outside, not possible, boss. Are we clear? So this is what we call it as, A is called as local scope. A is called global scope. B is called local scope. When you declare any of the variable within the function, even though it's in the same function, even though within the same application, you cannot make use of those variables. That is what we call it as local scope. Okay. So if someone asks you, what is the scope of B? What is the scope of A? How you're going to tell that? Where it is being declared. If it is declared outside, you call them as a global scope. If it is declared inside of the function, you simply say it is a block scope. So the place where you're declaring the variable will tell you what is the scope of the particular variable. Are we clear? Everyone, online students, are we good up to this? Why say? Okay, hope everyone is good. I can go forward. Okay, now the next thing what we have is block scope. Okay, what do you mean by block scope? Let's have a look. Understand things very clearly, guys. These all are the basics of JavaScript, so very important. I say max count equal to 100. I say a function, something called show message. What is the scope of max count? Everyone, local. It is global. What is the scope of temp? Local. Okay, that where we are declaring, that is how it is. Okay, I say where what is the scope of temp? Everyone, it is local. What is the scope of username? Local. It is global. Okay, whenever you specify the scope of the variable, don't see where it is been initialized. You just need to say where it is been declared. The declaration being done in the global level, obviously it can be accessible anywhere within the application. So even though you're assigning username equal to Prasad here, but still the username will be global. Why so? You're declaring it is global. Okay, don't go with the initialization, only go with the declaration part, where it has been declared. The place where you declare will tell you whether it is a global scope or local scope. Okay, super fine. Now I say some if condition. I say true. This guy will execute. Obviously, I'm directly saying it as true. Normally, what we need to do, we need to put some condition. The condition will return either true or false. And based on true or false, we'll execute the set of instructions, right? Now, I say var say some a equal to 100. I say console.log value of a is plus a. Any questions? Come back here, open in the default browser. I say inspect. I go to console. It says that the value of a is 100. Any questions? Clear, everyone? Okay. Now I say that what is the scope of variable a? Local, right? I want to respond, guys. Yes or no? Everyone, local. Everyone, global. No one. It should be local. Why so? Boss, you have declared the value of a within this open and closed block. Save this guy. Reload. A is coming. But what if I try to get this guy outside of this function, outside of this if code? It should throw me an error saying that boss a is not defined. Come back and reload the page. Could I able to access the value of a? Yes. Then no or yes? I could able to, right? But you said it is local. Then how come I could able to access it outside? This is going to be the difference with your var keyword. The question what you will get is, boss, I am defining this var a equal to 100 within the open and closed braces over here. It has to be accessible over here. Why it is coming outside this? The reason is, whenever you use the var keyword is always used to create the module scope. Now, what is the difference between a module and a block here? When I go with a function, this we call it as a module. When I go with an if block, it is a block here. It is not a module. Are we clear? So there is a difference between a module and a block. Block of code. I am writing a switch case. Is it a block or a module? Block. When I am writing a for loop, block or a module? Block. When I am writing a while loop, block or a module? Block. When I am writing a function, block or a module? Module. So whenever you say var keyword can only create the scope under the module, not under the block. Now, what if I want to say, I don't want to make use of accessible a outside. I want to keep the scope of this guy only within this. That is where we go with the keyword, something called as let keyword, let keyword. Whenever you want to make the accessibility of any of the variable only within the blocks, not outside the blocks, we will be using a keyword called let keyword. Var keyword will create a module scope. Let keyword will create a block scope. Now, when I say let, now when I reload the page, first time I could able to access. Second time, obviously, I can only be accessible inside this, not outside that. Are we clear? So this is a very good interview question, guys. People will ask you difference between the let keyword and var keyword. When we use the let keyword and var keyword outside, I say let, I say test is equal to say some test equal to say some 100. You tell me what is the scope of test? Global. When you declare globally, either let or var doesn't make a difference. When you declare these variables only within the block with a let keyword, that is where you're going to get the difference. Okay. For loop, while loop, any of the blocks you are using, it is recommended to go with the let keyword, not the var keyword. If you use the var keyword, it will be even accessible outside also, outside of the block. Okay. Everybody got the difference between these two? Let keyword and var keyword. So very, very, very important interview question. Difference between let and var, and when to go with let and when to go with the var keyword. Okay. Sarji, kindly repeat difference between Satish, that is what I said, right? What do you mean by module? Module means a function code from the open braces of the function to the closed brace of the function. We call it as a module. Okay, this guy, we call it as module. Whereas in case of your if block, it is a block. We never said like if module. We always used to say if block, for block, while block, switch block, something like that. Am I clear, Satish? Is it valid to use let keyword in a function too? No problem, Supriya. It's up to you. Now I say that something called as instead of temp, I make it as let keyword. Does it make any difference? No. When you use the let keyword only within the block, then only you will see the difference. Otherwise, it will behave as like a var keyword. Raju, what if we use let as a global declaration? That is what I said, right? No, Raju? Here, I said let test equal to 100. Is it is getting block scope or global scope or module scope? Global scope. When you declare it outside, obviously I'm getting the scope as outside. But when you declare within the if block or block, then only I will show my speciality over there. Otherwise, I'll be like as usual. Are we clear? Raju, hope you're clear. Everyone is clear with this, guys? This is very, very important topic. Like, what is the scope of the variable? People might not be directly asking you, tell me the difference between let and var. They might ask you directly that, okay, tell me what is the scope of a variable. Okay, scope always indicates that where all I could able to access the variable, that will tell you the scope of a variable. Either it is local, global, or block. How many types of scopes are there? 3 types. What are those? Global, local, block. You said lattice works as block scope. I said lattice works as block scope. Not I said, JavaScript guys told and I said to you guys. Obviously, that is what I said, right, Raju? Lattice indicating that. I mean, you're telling at line number 15, right? If I at line number 15, lattice working as a block scope, sorry, global scope. At line number 24, lattice working as a block scope. Difference is let only used in the block scope and var is global scope. Okay, hope I'm clear. Raju, are you clear with your question? Yes. Okay, now coming to the next topic. Now, do you recommend to declare, okay, let us go with our, okay, problems, what you face. I will declare some 2 variables, guys. I say var a1, a2. When I'm writing, please look into that. Don't discuss within you. Okay, so a very simple example. I have taken some 2 values, 2 variables, a1 and a2. I'm reading the data from the user, converting into number, finding the sum, and I'm showing the result back to the user. Any questions? Very good. I'm just want to check whether you're looking or not. Okay, so this is a1, a2. I'm reading the values and I'm finding the sum. Fine here. Okay, now when I save this, open this guy. I say enter the value for so and so, enter the value for this guy. Okay, the sum is going to be 99. Very simple question or very simple solution. Do you really think this is the way you're going to write the code now? Is it is modularized? It is just a scattered set of instructions, right? Okay, now I want to make it as a modularized. What I need to do? I need to go with the functions. Now what I do is, this is the piece of code from line number 13 to 17, which is working on reading and converting the data from the user. Now what I'll say, I will go with a function, read. Do you go with function keyword? No, I say where read user data is going to be a function arrow like this. Any questions? Clear? Now I say where get addition is going to be so and so like this. Like this. Any questions? Now can I say that it is modularized code, boss? Yes, it is. This is how it is recommended to go with. Every time you're going with any of the piece of code, any set of instruction relevant to one piece of job, make it as an individual block. Now I simply call this read user data and I say get addition like this. Okay, save this guy, come back to the page, reload the page. I give the value. Again, output is going to be same. No much difference. Now my another question is, do you really go with sequence of calling these functions like this? Not recommended. What should I go for? From outside, you call only one guy. Why don't I call only read user data? And that guy will internally call the get addition. Okay, now when I save it, come back and reload, output, not much difference. Any questions up to this? Everyone? So clear up to here. Okay, now the next thing what I have is, here the scope of A1 and A2 is, the scope of A1 and A2 is local, global, local, 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 global. Come on, I'm asking about A1 and A2. That's what I'm asking. So it is global. I have declared the variable outside of the function. Obviously, it is going to be the global scope. When I say result, global, right? It is local. So when you declare the variable inside the function, this is becoming local. Now, what is the problem you have with your global variables? Whenever you declare any data as a global data, there is a problem there. What is the problem? The problem is not just only your functions. Now, I say that these are the two methods what I have defined. The read user data and the addition part I have defined. Those guys can make use of A1 and A2. In future, we will be writing some piece of code where we will be using the third-party functions also. Okay, third-party function in the sense, we are not going to write it. Some other people will be writing. We might use in your application. Assume I say where, say something called as some third-party function equal to something like this. We haven't written. Some other guy has written the piece of code. If they try to make use of this A1, can they do that? If they try to make use of the variable called as A1, could they able to make use of it? Why it is undefined? Because I'm calling it before itself. I call this guy after this. Okay. Now when I'm reloading this guy, it says value is so and so, 5 so and so. The third party guy could able to access this value. Third party guy could able to access this value. This is the problem what you have with your global data or the public data. Whenever you declare the data as a public or global, not just only your methods, the third party people also can start and they can make use of it. You know one thing, when I'm reloading this guy, okay, I say something called a 66 and 77. I'm an outside guy. You know what I'll do? Here, I will say console.log the B value. Could I? Sorry. If I access B, it is not coming. It should be, I say A2. Could I able to access it, boss? I am a third party user. I don't know what all you have declared, but I know that your variables are A1 and A2. I could able to come and I could able to make use of it. But if I try to do the same guy with something called as result variable, could I able to access it? No. Why so, boss? You have declared the result variable as a private data, okay, or local data. So it is recommended, by considering the security issues, it is recommended that whenever you're declaring any of the variables, recommended and mandatory that you should not declare any type of global variables. Okay, you should never ever declare any type of global variables. It should be always only the private data you need to declare. Are we clear? Now what I'm saying, I don't want to declare this A1 and A2 here. I say I'm going to put this over here itself. Now A1 and A2 are public data or private data? Private data. Super fine. Now when I save this, come back and reload the page. I say A1, I say A2. Now, the first problem what you're seeing is at line number 25, it is saying that A1 is not defined. What is that? Okay, let me remove the third party as you already understand this. Yeah, it is saying that at line number 25, I don't know what you mean by A1. Obviously, it is valid. Earlier, we are declaring global, it is fine. But right now, what I have, I couldn't able to access the data even in my own function also. It's okay, third party guy cannot access, that is fine. But at least I should able to access this guy. Yes or no? I should able to access it. If I couldn't able to access and I'm making it as a private data, what is the use of this, boss? Isn't it? So now I need to find a solution. The problem what we have is I want to make this as a private data or a local data so that I can provide the security to the code. But at the same time, I should able to access the data into my own defined function, not to the outside functions. So how can I access this private data into the other functions what I am invoking or what I am using? So there are three different ways. There are three different ways we can access private data of one function into another. Okay, whenever you want to access, we already understand the problem. The problem is I don't want to make it as public data. If I make it as public, everyone is using. Now if I'm making it as private, I myself couldn't able to use. My own defined functions couldn't able to do that. Now I want a way. What are the ways we have so that I could able to access the private data of one function into another function? So there are three different ways we can do that, guys, where the first one is by passing values as parameters. Okay, the second thing is by returning values from function, and the third way is by both returning value and passing parameters. So this understanding is very important, guys. As I said you, functions we will be using until we end of the class or end of this training session. At the same time, passing parameters and returning values, this also every day we will be using it. Okay, so it is very much mandatory that everybody need to understand what you mean by passing parameter, why we actually do this. Okay, and one more thing, guys, I need to make you guys understand with a picture, like what do you mean by this private scope and public scope. Okay, I missed that guy. Now, when I'm saying that it is a public variable, you could able to access it. It is private variable, I couldn't able to access it. How it is happening, we'll have a look. I say a equal to say some 10. I said where b is equal to say some 20. I say a function, say some sample. Where max is equal to say some 100. Okay, this is how I have variables and functions being declared. You tell me A and B are local or global scope. A and B are local or global scope. It is global scope. Max and name. Name local. Super fine. Now, can I access the value of max outside this function? Obviously no. So why it is the reason, let us have a look how internally the location or memory allocation is going to happen, guys. Whenever you say this is one of the application, when you give to the browser is going to allocate a different memory for this individual web page. One web page, I'm going to create one block. If you're giving for second web page, it will be creating a different block here. Now, under this block, all the memory for the variables which are being declared into that web page will be created. Now, first thing, you said where A equal to 10 and B equal to 20. What I'm going to do? I'm going to take a separate memory, something like this. I will call this guy as variable A. And under this, I'm going to put some value as 10. Are we clear? Yes. On the top, I'm going to allocate separate memory for B. I will call this guy as B, and internally I put the value as 20. Any questions? Now, whenever we go with a function, what is going to happen? Either it could be normal function, or I say var like this. It could be arrow function, normal function, or anything you go. What internally happens is it is going to allocate two different memories for individual functions like this. Okay, function will get allocated with a separate memory here. So they will say this is for one function and this is for another function. This guy, they will call this guy as sample, and the second guy is called as a, what is that? Display data. Okay, this guy is called as display data, something like this. Now, internally, now they are going to allocate the memory. For the first guy, I have max and name. I say this is for max and this is for name, like this. Now I say this guy will be max. This guy will be name, like this. Internally, the another guy is having separate variable. This guy is having name equal to 100. Now I say this guy name, and this guy will have 100. This max guy is having 100, and this is Tina. I say 100, and now I say Tina. Any questions on this memory allocation? So first thing what you need to understand is internally a individual block of memory will be created for a function. Under that, whatever the variables you declare, that is where it is going to assign the variables. Now, A and B are the blocks, global scope here. That is the reason A can be used inside a function, B can be used in any of the function, because those are global variables. But now if you see, is the max is being bounded between this red block here? Yes, it is. As I am bounded between the red block, I can only be accessible within this block. I cannot be accessible outside of this block. As I am, this name variable is been bounded between this red block, only the name can be accessible over here. It cannot be accessible outside of the particular block. Are we clear? Understood, everyone? Okay, so this is how we are internally memory allocation is going to happen. That is the reason the variable accessibility and non-accessibility is going to differentiate between the variables or between the functions or between local variables and global variables. Are we clear now? Much more clearance with your, much more understanding you should be able to get when you go with this variable declarations here. Global variables or local variables. Okay. Even for loops and all, while loops and all, they will be allocated with some different blocks like this. Under this, whatever the things which you create using the let keyword, those will be declared inside this, so that those guys cannot be accessible outside of it. Okay. Next. Yeah. Now, you know this. Why A, not this guy. Why this A1 Why this A1 and A2 are not being accessible to the other function? Because inside that function, that block is being declared only into this A1, A2, cannot be accessible outside. Now, what is the solution I wanted? I should able to access this A1 and A2 into this function. Okay. As I said you, there are 3 different ways we can use it. Let us go into this first one. Okay. So what is the very first one? I'm saying that we could able to make use of one function private data into another function by using something called as function calling with some passing parameters. What do you mean by that? Let's have a look. You tell me, and everybody let us understand this, guys. You tell me when I give this application, let I say something called as some console.log, something called as start point. Save this. You tell me if I give this application for execution, what is the very first thing which gets executed? Line number? Is it is 29 or 12? 12. Always it goes from the top to bottom approach. I execute the 12. After 12, is it is 39? Sorry, is it is 13? No, 13 is not going to get executed. It is just a function definition, boss. Okay. That will be done. This will be done. Now I will be directly coming into line number 29. I will execute this guy. From line number 29, where it is jumping to? Everyone, 13. I will go to line number 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. At 20, after 20, where I will go? You are calling this function called as get addition. From here, I will jump to line number 24 or line number 23. I'm going to execute the things. Everybody is so clear that whenever you're going to call a function, from the calling function to the definition, I will be automatically jumping, right? The controller will be automatically jumping. That we have seen even practically also when we are debugging the code. Isn't it? When I go to the sources, when I go here, see, when I click on this 29, when I execute this guy, I say go into this. See, I'm saying A1, say something called as 45. I go into this. I say A2, something called as 77. See here, at line number 19, it is done. When I'm going to line number 20, from line number 20, I'm jumping to line number 25. Implies I'm jumping to this function. We know this. Now, what I'm saying is, whenever we are calling this function, this guy is called as calling function. Read user data is a calling function. Why so? I am calling one of the function called as get addition. Okay, this is the guy which we call it as calling function. Now, get addition is called as called function because I was being called by someone else. Okay, function. One is calling function and another is called function. I am calling one of the function. That is the reason read user data is going to be the calling function. I was being called by someone. Get addition will become the called function. Clear, everyone? Okay. Whenever we are calling a function within the, we are calling one of the called function within the calling function, we know that controller will jump from here to line number 23. Whenever the controller is jumping from one location to another location, we have a possibility to pass some data. Not just only controller shifting from line number 20 to line number 23. We can throw some data that can be carried to this function also. So how you're going to pass the data? We are going to do that using the parameters. What do you mean by parameters? Any function you say, something called a sample. Can I call it as a function? No. Can I say this guy is a function? Any variable with open and closed braces, we call it as a function. Under this open and closed brace, if you see any data, we call it as a parameter. Under the function, under the open and closed braces, any data you see, that we call it as a parameter. And not just only single parameter, you can pass any number of parameters. I can say P1, P2, P3, like this with comma separated, I can pass any parameters. Okay. Now what I'm saying, you know that I have this A1 variable and A2 variable. I have to pass that to the get addition. I simply say A1 comma A2. Okay. If at all, assume you are giving the A1 value. Here the A1 value will be assume it is 90. At line number 16, what it will become? Come on, it will be 90. Clear, everyone? We know that at line number, assume that at line number 15, I'm giving the value as 90. By default, it will be string. When it becomes to line number 16, it becomes a number. Okay. Assume we are giving the value at A2 as something called as 81. Assume. Now at here, what it will become? Just a number 81. Are we clear? Now at line number 20, you know what it is going to happen? Indirectly, even though you are saying get addition A1 comma A2, it will be get addition 90 comma 81. Are we clear? Earlier we are simply saying get addition, but now what I'm saying, I'm passing some two values over here. I'm saying that 90 comma 81 to be passed. Now when the controller is, now when I say that, I'm throwing some value to you guys. Do I need to catch it to hold that guy? Yes or no? Now just passing the values will not be enough. You may say that, okay, I'm passing A1 and A2. Now you save this guy, come back and reload this guy. I may remove this. Now I say this guy, I say 44, I say 55. Now when I go to the console, again it is saying A1 is not defined. So just passing the data is not enough, boss. You need to catch that guy. So how do you catch this guy? When I'm defining this function, you need to use some temporary variables, say some P1 and P2. Now what is going to happen? The first value 90 will be passed into the P1, second value 81 will be passed into the P2. Now if I say P1 plus P2 instead of A1 plus A2, does it make any difference? Instead of A1 plus A2, if I say P1 plus P2, does it make any difference for me? No, I simply say this guy as P1, this guy as P2. This is the way indirectly I could able to access the private data of one function into another function. Now you see, do you have any global variables? No. Let us say this guy, reload the page. I say 55. I say some 89. You click on here. Could I able to find the sum of these two, boss? I have two individual functions, no global data, private data. Still, I could able to access the private data of one function into another function, which we call it as functions with passing parameters. Are we clear? Any questions? Let me know, guys. Is everyone so clear with this? Okay, so let us reload this page and let us go with the debugging. Now I say I'm stopping at line number 30, reload this page. Okay, I go to this watcher. Let me remove whatever we have earlier. I say I want to go with something called A1, or else it is not global data, right? Let us mouse over and find it out. Now I click on read user data. You see here, I'm coming to line number 15. So what is the value of A1? Undefined. What is the value of A2? Undefined. Okay, I'm going inside this guy. I say value of A is so and so. I say value of A is something like this. Now, if I mouse over on this guy, you see here, what is the value of A? 44. What's the value of B? 78. Now, when I'm saying get addition, you see, am I carrying some 44 value and 78 value also along with this? Earlier, it is just a simple function call. Only the controller is jumping. But now, along with the controller, I am even carrying some value also here. Okay. Now, from line number 21, am I not jumping to line number 26 here? Now, when I mouse over on this P1, is it not it is 44? Yes, it is. When I mouse over on this P2, is it not it is 78? Implies A1 value is being copied into P1, A2 value is being copied into P2. Now, if you ask me a question, what if I say instead of P1, P2, I say some P3 and P4? Boss, this naming doesn't matter. Whatever the first value is there, that will be going into the first parameter. Whatever the second value is there, that will go into the second parameter. That's it. You make P1, P2, P2, P3, A, B, C, X, Y, Z, again A1, A2, doesn't make any difference. Okay. And another thing, when you go to the C language and all, now if you ask me a question, we are not declaring this P1, P2. Are we saying anywhere like var P1 and var P2? No, it is not needed in your JavaScript. For the parameters, declaration not needed. You don't need to say var P1 and P2. In case of other technologies like your C language, you need to say function int a comma, int b comma, you need to say this. Example, in other technologies, we need to say function. Okay, say something called as add values. You need to say int a comma float b or char c. Like this, you need to declare the parameters in your other technologies. But if it is JavaScript, we say function add values a comma b comma c. You don't need to declare them, not even var keyword. Automatically declaration will be done. So any questions on this passing parameter? How do we pass a parameter and how do we find the sum of these two values? Is everyone so good up to here? Online students, any questions? Instead of P1, P2, I already told this, right? Sir, without passing parameters, can we get result? Obviously, no, right? Raju, if I don't pass parameters, you tell me what is the way I can access this A1 and A2? No way, right? Because those are local variables. If you say that still I want to make use of without using parameter I have to use, then you need to declare it as a global data. But you already know what is the problem we have with your global data. Am I clear, Raju? Okay, now you can unmute yourself.
You said that function calling get addition. Did you see the line number 21?
Okay, line number 21 you're saying.
Yeah, you passing the parameters A1 and A2. Without passing parameters, we can get result as a function calling get addition.
Come on, without passing parameter, how you will get it? Say, for example, if I'm not passing A1 and A2, how you will be passing this data into this? It is just a controller, right? Controller will jump from line number 21 to 24. Without passing parameter, how do I send this data? When you're guys, have a look over here. Now, whenever you're calling the function, it will simply jump from line number 21 to 24. It will simply jump from line number 21 to 24. It is not going to carry the values. Only if you pass parameters, then only I will jump from here to here. At the same time, I'm even carrying some data. Are you clear, Nukrash?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone? Sachin, so we don't want to use var or let keyword, we can put them in the brackets. Yes, Sachin, it is almost, when I say P1 and P2, it is almost equal to var P1 and var P2. In JavaScript, it is not needed to declare the parameters with var keyword. It's an option, not optional, it is not needed. It's a syntactical error. If you say that, no boss, I will say var P1 and var P2, it doesn't allow you. In line number 14 to how can you say line number 14? It is not parameters, right, Sachin? Do you think like A1 and A2 are parameters or normal variables? Parameters are the variables which are between the open and closed braces, right? So these I can say parameters because it is open and closed brace. But do you think are these parameters? No, right? Normal variables. Normal variables, it is required to declare the variables. Okay, Hemalata. So we never use global variables in future or as a pre-requirement. Yes, Hemalata, that is true. That is true, guys. We all know that. She's saying that, boss, in future, we never use global data. Never recommended to use the global data. Okay, never recommended to go with the global data by putting security concerns in mind. Declare A1, A2, line 14. Declare A1, A2, line 14. Okay, so what is the problem here? I think you're answering. Okay, any more questions, guys? Can we use? Yeah, we can use it, right? That is what I said. If you remember, when I'm going with the memory, earlier I had name over here. This name is there. Do you think both are getting clash? Earlier, I got it. I'm saying here also I have a name variable. Here also I have a name variable. Do you think this is Tina, this is 100? Do you see any clash here? No, even though you use the same variable names, I say instead of P1, I say A1, I say A2. That is the reason I said this line number 21. When I say get addition 90, 81, I am not saying A1, A2. I am taking the values. Now 90 will be pushed into first variable, 81 into put into second variable. The first variable could be A1, A2, ABC, PQ or anything, doesn't make a difference for me. Okay. So in that case, you will say A1 and you say A2, or else to make a difference, let us make is A3 and this is A3. Okay, see, one variable is same, second variable is different. It's up to you, boss. Is get a predefined way? Why do we use it? Is get is predefined way? No, Shushma, no, Shushant. Sorry. So it is not something, right? I mean, it's not get addition is not a predefined. I may say something called as some prasad also. Okay, it's up to you, whatever the name you give. But do you have any meaning for this, Prasad? Prasad doesn't have any meaning. So, I mean, when you're giving the names here, try to give it as a self-descriptive variable names. When I say Prasad, I mean, what do you mean by Prasad, boss? I mean, I'm not understanding what actually it is. Okay, that is the reason it is recommended that try to give the self-descriptive variable names. When I give this get addition, people look into this, they will understand that, okay, this is what it is. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, any more questions? Okay, anytime you're doing the function names, always try to give it as a self-descriptive and a meaningful names. Sir, name variables are also passed. Raki, you can pass anything. I mean, anything. I say something called as, there is some name, user name. Okay, equal to say some Tina. Okay, I say is fee paid equal to something called as true. Okay, these are the two variables. You tell me username and fee paid. Local variables or global variables? Local. Now, if I can I pass these guys also here? Now I say A2 comma username comma is fee paid. You can pass anything. Now you need to catch that guy. That's it. If you don't catch it, doesn't make a problem for you. Now, if you say that, boss, here I'm passing 4 variables, but you're catching only 2 variables, what about the remaining 2? They're gone. They're gone in the air. You are not catching. There is no mandatory that you need to catch all the variables. It is up to you. You don't, it's not mandatory that you need to catch them. See, I'm passing this, guys. Please look into this. What is making you to discuss between you? If you have any questions, ask me. Again, continuing. Good way to put the mask and talk, right? Okay, please don't, I mean, if you have any questions, talk to me. Now I say get addition A1 comma A2 username and all. You see, I'm passing 4 parameters, but I'm catching only A1 and A3, boss. Now, if you come back and reload the page, does it make any error? See, reload the page. Okay, first value, second value. Still I see the output here. Yes, in JavaScript, it is not mandatory that you need to catch all the variables. It is up to you. You may catch it or you may not catch it. But in other technologies, it will check for the syntax. Boss, there you're passing 4, you're catching only 2, it is an error. But in JavaScript, you have a flexibility, not mandatory to catch all 4. If you ask me, where is this username and is feed is going? Gone in the air. If you have to catch it, then you simply say, comma, say something called as name, say something called as paid. Now this value will be copied into this guy. This value will be copied into this guy. Okay. What if I say paid, comma, name I'm doing? Then what is going to happen, boss? This username will be copied into this. It is not going to check for variable names. I only see the order. Okay. First value, I need to put into this guy. Second value, I need to put into this. Third value, I will put into this. Fourth value, I'll put into this. So you need to make sure the order is same as the way they are passing the data. Am I clear? Okay. Next. That's great. Now he's saying that, okay, boss, you are passing 4. I say something called as some test is the variable what I'm catching. Now what will be test here? Undefined, not 0. It is undefined. Okay. Okay. Is everyone clear? Can I go forward? We ourselves declared that function with that name. So it's a user defined. Is, yeah, fine. Anyone, any other questions? Can I go forward? Everyone? Okay. Let's go home. Okay. So the next topic what we have is function overloading. Okay. You know, I mean, people who have an idea of your C language or C++ or Java, so they know that what do you mean by overloading. What do you mean by overloading? We take one function, I say add values. Okay, I'm going to give the body for this, and I say another function, add values, and I'm going to give a different body for this. Okay, the concept of taking the same function name, giving multiple definitions with the same function name, we call it as a function overloading. Okay, taking the same function name, I'm defining some multiple functions with the same name, but the content will be different. The body will be different for each and every function. This we call it as a function overloading. Okay, now the concept is, in case of your JavaScript, how it is going to happen. I say console.log am from first function. The second thing is I say console.log am from second function. This is what I'm doing. Now when I say add values, you tell me what is going to happen. You tell me what it is going to come. That's it. Output you tell me. Second function. Okay, next. First function. Who all are first? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, who all are second? Remaining all neutral. Let it go, whatever happened. Guys, why you are not responding? When participate in the discussion, guys, raising your hand, I'm not asking for money to give it. Okay, so when I'm asking some questions, try to participate in the discussion. Just sitting idle doesn't really help you. Either it is wrong or right, talk. Put into the participate in the discussion. Okay, so when I save this, okay, now when I save this guy, open in the default browser, inspect this guy, go to console, what it is coming? Second function. So why it is not first? The thing what happens in your JavaScript is, in JavaScript, we don't support the concept of overloading. There is no way we can define multiple functions with the same name. Not possible in your JavaScript. Okay, in case of other technologies, say for example, in your C language, you know how it is going to happen. I say a function, something called as add values, say something called as float a comma float b. I will do this. This is what I'm going to write. I say function add values int a comma int b. I'm going to do this. Here I say function add values, something called as int a comma float b. Okay, I say function add values int a comma float b comma float c, and I'm going to write the code for this. Now if I say add values of 10 comma 20, which one will get executed? If it is C language, I'm saying, imagine, guess it. Obviously the second one, this function is going to get executed. Why so? You're passing two integers. I will come over here, I will execute this. Okay, now I say add values of 10.2 and 10.4. Which one is going to get executed? First one. Why so? You're passing two parameters which is of decimals. Okay, I say add values of, say some 10 and 10.4. Obviously the third value is going to get executed. I say add values of say something called as 3.4, and this is 10. Which one is going to get executed? It is going to execute the fourth guy. Now when I say add values of 2 comma 4 comma 5 comma 6, like this I'm going to do, what is going to happen? It will simply throw an error. Was there is no function which is taking 4 parameters. This is what happens in case of your other technologies. Now let us do the same guy in your JavaScript, boss. I say copy. Okay, for now I'm commenting this guy. You see here, I say I'm having some add values. Let us say console.log, first one. Second one. Third one. Fourth one. Okay. So these are the ones which I'm doing like this. Now, do I have this variables integer and all? No, it is just normal variables. That's it. We don't have this data types in your JavaScript. Any questions, boss? Okay. You tell me, when I call this line number 39, which one will come? Everyone. First, second, third. Third one, right? Very nice. When I come to line number 40, third one. When I come to line number 41, when I come to line number 42, fourth one. When I come to line number 44, I still didn't got the exact result, exact answer from anyone. Now, when I save this, come back here and reload the page. What it is? Fourth one. Understood why it is? In JavaScript, there is no overloading of the function, boss. Okay. Whenever you give this piece of code to the JavaScript, you know what happens? Okay, boss, you told me what add values is. I'm going to allocate a memory. I'm going to remove this. Okay. When you say add values, I'm going to allocate a memory. I'm going to write some piece of code. Whatever the memory it is, I'm done. Now, when you say that another add values, there is no way I can create multiple memory having the same name. What I will do, I'm going to replace this same guy with the new data over here itself. So the new data will be something like this. Now, when I'm going with the third function, again, you are saying add values. I'm not going to allocate the same memory. I'm going to clear out this guy. I'm going to allocate the memory for this guy itself. So once after this line number 37 got executed, how many functions are there in the memory? One function. Okay. Now, doesn't matter you pass 10 and 10. He is expecting 3. I don't know. Sorry, this is the 3. Yeah. So doesn't matter you are passing this 10, 10. Here it is expecting 3. I don't bother. In JavaScript, number of parameters is never matched. Data type of the parameters is never matched. In case of other technology in your C language, it is comparing whether it is an integer, this guy has to be called. If it is a float, this guy has to call. But in case of your JavaScript, it only checks that first value will be passed into the first parameter, second value will be passed in second parameter, third parameter is gone. I never bothered of number of parameters and the type of parameters. I only bother add values. Add values need to be compared or add values need to be invoked. Okay. Function overloading is not supported in your JavaScript. If no overloading, overriding will come into the picture? Not at all. So function overloading and overriding are not at all supported in your JavaScript. Are we clear? Understood, everyone? Online students, any questions? Okay. So what is our next topic? So we have seen that how do we access the data from one function into another function? By using parameters. The another way what I have is by returning a value from the function. Shall we take it today? I mean, today we have taken this parameters, right? It's good you will have some gap so that you will understand that better. So make sure everybody does the enough practice on how do we passing the parameter, guys. Closed it. Now I'm going to give a new topic. Okay. So yeah, take some time to practice this guy, get some expertise on this passing parameters. Let us go to whatever the example, student details, employee details, try to see how you're passing the parameters and how to make use of this data. Once you get expertise, we are going to talk about the returning value also. Okay. And the third one is both. We'll combine the returning and passing the parameters. Okay. So let's pause it for today. Have a good day and bye for today.